after Vanessa's declaration about Khan. Both of the saint retainers were stunned and dumbfounded. The first stage fireborn saint was completely confused. The third stage saint, on the other hand, face-bombed himself as his shoulders slumped down, and he let out a sigh of helplessness. "She really messes up her words when she's riled up," he said. "Princess, please be careful. Those words can be misleading." He spoke in a gentle tone. "What do you mean?" asked Vanessa curiously. "I simply meant that I'm going to make that ungrateful bastard into my slave and make him regret rejecting my offer," she explained. "Yeah, but your words suggest that you want him to become your man," said the first stage fireborn saint. "Eh?" Suddenly, Vanessa came back to her senses and remembered what she spoke just a minute ago. "Heh?" Her eyes widened as the shock hit her mind. As soon as she herself understood how those words would be perceived by others, her entire face turned red like a ripe tomato. "No, that's not what I meant," rebuked Vanessa and grabbed her head with both hands. A visible red tinge appeared on her cheek as she shook her head in denial. She was thoroughly embarrassed at the moment, and tried to hide her blushing face from the two saints. "I need to take some rest. That rascal ruined my mood," she exclaimed and started running towards the door that led to her living chambers while hiding her flustered expression. After she left in a hurry like a charging duck, both of her retainers let out a defeated sigh. "May God Hetrax have mercy on his soul," knowing how Her Highness never gives up on something after she sets her mind to it, said the middle-aged fireborn and continued in an emphatic tone. "He's going to get dragged into a lot of trouble." At the Oakenshield Company premises, the main building's largest area was filled with noises and constant echoing sounds of hammers clanging against metals and object-like sound of raindrops falling on the ground all at a single moment. "Speed up, ye lil buggers. We don't have an entire day, just prepare one part of the set. You call yourself dwarves? Even a newborn pup can do a better job than all of you, you useless bums," he shouted. In the main forge of the Oakenshield Company, Throck was overseeing over 2,000 blacksmiths, all of whom were dwarves that they hired while paying a hefty sum. Because of the demand for arms by both Hector and Vanessa, as well as the great feedback they received from their respective trading companies and deals made with their followers for the weapons supply, Throck was burdened with even more work. And now he was guiding others in the production line while giving them instructions on how to efficiently perform shaping and fit the parts in a way that won't drag down the wearer and hinder the physical movements while fighting. The biggest challenge for them was that the armors weren't made just for a single species but too many varying species, and that too with different physical builds and body measurements. So every single one of the dwarves was tasked with preparing one set of armor that included many different parts for one individual each. Hence, Throck himself had to overlook their work because a messed-up measurement or slight mistake would ruin the entire set. It wasn't a task like mass-producing and copy-pasting the same set like some fictional story where every soldier was a human and everyone would wear the same type of armor regardless of the difference between their physiology. But in the evening after their work for the day ended, Throck called Khan and Blackwell. "Today we will start with hammering," he said, and handed down 2 hammers made for novice blacksmiths. He told both of them about how to hammer down the hot metal ingot and how to distribute their hits to flatten it out. "You both will be doing it without using mana or world energy. Use only your physical strength," he ordered. Bang! Suddenly, a shockwave was released in the room as soon as both Khan and Blackwell made their first strike. Crack! The hot metal ingots were cracked open in multiple pieces while the hammers in their hands were mashed like potatoes themselves. "You idiots! I didn't say you have to use all of your physical strength. Just enough to broaden the ingots," shouted Throck as he reprimanded both of his students. "But this is our normal physical strength," replied Khan casually. Blackwell also nodded in affirmation because neither of them was using even 1% of their power. Throck was completely taken aback, because if this was them using their minimal strength, then how powerful would they be if they used mana and world energy infused in their strikes? "What kind of freaks are you two? Even I, a second stage saint, can't flatter an entire ingot in a single strike just with pure physical strength," he exclaimed in denial. However, little did he know that the two disciples of his were walking-talking calamities themselves. Khan had the war deity body and Blackwell was a primordial titan. Even if both of them didn't want to, they were simply too strong in terms of physical strength alone compared to others of their rank. After another earful of scolding, they began the practice again. Throck then told them how to angle their hits based on the type of part of the armor under the forging procedure or the type of hammer they're using. Khan understood that these little details actually saved a lot of time, effort, and shaped the sample at hand at a much faster pace. So in other words, Throck was indeed sharing his decades of experience if he could guide them this effectively even in the novice-level training. Both Khan and Blackwell slowly started hitting the ingots carefully as if using 0.1% of their strength. Hours passed and finally, both of them were learning to control their physical strength and how much force they had to deliver in each strike of the hammer. Khan and Blackwell had a smile on their faces after they too started enjoying the process. Because for both of them, this was the beginning of their real training. 2 more days passed since Khan and the Abyss Knight General aka Blackwell started their blacksmithing skills lesson and practiced 7 to 8 hours a day under Throck's supervision. In just 2 days, Khan also noticed that he was improving bit by bit and not mindlessly banging his hammer without the grasp of the metal on the anvil and how they wanted to shape it. And on the 3rd day, Khan finally received a notification in his head. Skill unlocked. Blacksmith's hammering, F rank, active. Allows the host to manage the force delivered in each strike while hammering on different parts of the metal or alloy. Current progress, 6%. The host can increase his mastery just like weapon mastery and combat techniques mastery blessings in this skill by practicing and increasing his proficiency. Yes! Exclaimed Khan after hearing this unexpected notification. He found it extremely useful that the blessings could also be used to improve his blacksmithing skill, unlike his previous assumptions. And it would be just like he practiced combat techniques and weapon mastery. He now had a way to improve these skills as well. This news had a big impact because if this applied to blacksmithing skills, then it could help him in other lifestyle professions and their respective skills as well. Obviously, there was no shortcut just like in the former cases, but he no longer had to be anywhere else or had to manage a fiefdom. Money, resources, and even upgrades in his weapons and armor. He was getting all of it for free. So Khan was going to dedicate all of his time to blacksmithing and raise his rank in this profession as well. Wait a minute. Just then, a thought came into his mind. System, can my weapon mastery, magic spells, combat techniques, as well as world energy be shared if my doppelgangers also learn and practice them? Can I receive them from my doppelgangers? He asked curiously. Because the doppelgangers were able to absorb mana and world energy through Rathnar's core, convert it into space force and share those reserves with Khan when they deactivated and all of it passed to the original body. Now that host is a saint and the doppelganger skill has evolved to saint rank. It is possible. Replied the system. Holy shit, this changes everything. Show me the newly evolved version of doppelganger skill. Ordered Khan. Following is the new upgraded version of the doppelganger skill. Doppelganger, saint rank, active, upgradable. Allows the host to create an identical copy of himself with all of the host's skills and abilities for 75 seconds. The range of this ability is 15 kilometers. The doppelganger will share the mind connection and vision with the host, and they all share a soul connection with him, so the skill mastery, combat techniques mastery, weapon mastery, and magic spell mastery can be shared after the new evolution of the skill to saint rank. The host will also be able to increase his proficiency and rank up his skills that are learned and practiced by the doppelgangers. Note: the doppelgangers will have 65% of all of the host's stats. The activation time will increase with the increase in the host's levels and rank. In case the doppelganger dies, it can be revived again after 30 minutes. The host can extend the time of activation indefinitely as long as the doppelgangers have high-grade SS rank cores or ores to sustain their existence. 1 SS rank core is enough for 1 doppelganger to continue existing for 2 hours. 5 more doppelgangers will be added with each new rank up in saint stages. Inform system with all new details. Muhahahaha. Ha 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 ha. Laughed Khan like a maniac. Why do I keep forgetting that I'm basically a living hack these days after all those abilities and skills I absorbed? This one is the most helpful in saving time," he said with a wicked smile. Since all the doppelgangers shared a direct soul link with him, and thus the transfer of energy and mastery was also possible. This opened another door for Khan. And after his rank up, they could stay active for 2 hours just with one SS rank core instead of only 1 hour before he became a saint. Great! This means I can simultaneously study magic, perfect my weapon mastery, and improve all my skills that I already have, study and enhance my magic study and skills. I can also continue studying space law and even learn and improve my blacksmithing skills. Means I'm accomplishing 4 different tasks all at once, he said in exhilarated voice. Since I already have my Space Force reserves full, let's allocate all the doppelgangers to a particular task and keep all of them busy, he said, and tried to think of ways to use this another cheat ability of his to maximize his gains. Khan then decided that he will use 5 doppelgangers to practice blacksmithing after he acquired skills by himself. Later, the doppelgangers will also get the ability, and through them, he will increase his mastery and proficiency. Then he allotted 5 to practice magic and space law. This way, he will also greatly improve his use of mana, world energy, and magic spells that he was going to study from the books he got from Solomon, who himself was an elven mage. And finally, he decided to put the remaining 5 to practice all of his new fighting skills, abilities and weapons, as well as combat techniques that were unlocked after he became a saint. The ones he previously had were already at 100% mastery, but the newly unlocked ones and the upgraded ones also needed a lot of work to perfect. But because of his blacksmithing training, he wouldn't get enough time for them even if he started training at early dawn. So as a result, Khan would have a perfect mastery in these sectors and won't have to waste time or wait to become free. Khan then made a new resolution in his mind. From now on, he will work endlessly with one clear goal in mind. That whatever field it was, he was going to become the best of the best. Inside a central region of the capital Awakens was a territory of a particular institution that played a very important part in the social and cultural structure of the entire Vulcan Empire. Inside this 50 kilometers wide territory were hundreds of lavishly decorated white and red-colored buildings that were filled with millions of people since the early morning. Through sound-amplifying artifacts, all these people prayed to the hymn that resounded in these settlements while maintaining peace and order, as if this was part of their daily routine. At the innermost parts were 5 gigantic castles that were not only heavily guarded but also appeared to be the most highly maintained among all these buildings. And at the end of it was a ginormous castle that had 5 layers of different sections, while at the very end of it was a 500-meter-tall enormous statue of a figure with multiple arms that were covered with blistering flames, and yet it appeared to not be affected by them at all. Unlike the other portions of the region, only the highest authorities of this institution were allowed to set foot in the closest areas of this statue, while the rest were permitted to only look from outside regions of these castles. This place was the Church of Hetrax, and the statue belonged to the Hetrax, the god of fire in the world of Vantria. Among the many high-ranking people, including hundreds of paladins, over a dozen of whom were bona fide saints. Then thousands of deacons and priests who worshipped their mighty god with vehement eyes were also gathered a few kilometers away from the statue of Hetrax. In front of them were a few hundred bishops, followed by over 40 archbishops, 3 cardinals, and finally, the Pope himself, an elderly fireborn whose eyes shone brighter as if they were on fire while donning a red and golden cassock, stood the closest to the statue a few hundred meters away. "Your Holiness, everyone is here," spoke the middle-aged cardinal who was adorned in white and red robes of the church, after completing their prayers and worshipping rituals. The Pope, who had summoned all the important figures of their church that were spread across the whole empire, then gathered over a hall created for holding a congregation. "May the eternal flames of our almighty god Hetrax cleanse your bodies and soul," he spoke vehemently while widening his arms and looking at the gigantic statue of Hetrax. "We pay heed to the mighty god Hetrax and offer our lifetime pledge of loyalty," spoke all the attendees in unison at the same time. After the introductions were done, refreshments and delicious food were put on long tables, enough to feed 10,000 people at once. The mood was set properly for a proper discussion. "I, Demiurge Val Arhelm, gladly welcome you to our annual congregation," He spoke and his voice reached the ears of every single person present in this 2 kilometers wide building. The aura given by the Pope himself was of a 6th-stage saint who had the profession of a healer. "Forgive me for my rudeness, Your Holiness. Wasn't our annual congregation supposed to happen 3 months later as per our usual schedule?" asked one of the archbishops who were suddenly summoned on short notice. "Yes, Archbishop Clive. But there is a reason why I was forced to summon everyone here on short notice," he explained in a kind voice and continued while gazing at all the people present in this vast hall. "After the recent imperial court's decision regarding the crimes of the former second prince, Rogi's host Siegfried and his allies, we all know what kind of situation we're in," he emphasized. To his words, everyone's face turned sullen all of a sudden. Because not only Rogi's but all of his allies and those who partook in his crimes of killing humans for fun and releasing their hatred on the innocent people who were shunned by the laws of the empire, all of them were judged under imperial punishment. Among the perpetrators, over 3,200 people belonged to our church, and all of them previously held an influence in several regions and had high rankings positions in our institutions throughout the empire. He iterated and gave a number to all of the high-ranking people. And now every single one of them has been either caught and imprisoned or executed under the imperial decree. This was something neither we nor any prominent race of the empire could fight against. Because if I spoke one word against it, the emperor and the imperial clan could have used it against us in order to get rid of many more among our ranks in the name of investigation or dug up some buried past that we didn't want the common populace to know about. And hence, I too had no choice but to give up many of those who previously attended our congregation just last year. He elaborated with a stern expression. However, no one dared to speak a word against the emperor or the imperial clan at all, because that was enough to get them in trouble. It's not just us, but many other races and even the dwarven race had their infrastructure and chain of command broken to bits. Just one imperial decree by the emperor was enough to destroy centuries of the system that we established. Our losses are probably the largest in the history of any pope who came before me. He brought everyone's attention to this hard fact. This is why I don't think we can afford to stay on the sides anymore. This empire. He looked towards everyone's expectant gazes and declared in a loud voice. We are the main force that bound different species and classes of society and showed them a proper direction to live their lives. We formed communities, regardless of one's origin, and brought them together. If not for us, the imperial clan would have never managed to rule the empire on their own. But after the recent imperial decree, I have only a clear vision that we should all join hands to accomplish. He spoke. "What is that?" asked the first cardinal. To their curious gazes, Demiurge declared his final decision. The Vulcan Empire shall only be ruled by the Church of Hetrax. As soon as the current pope of the Church of Hetrax, Demiurge Val Arhelm, revealed his ambitions to make their institution into the sole rulers of the Vulcan Empire, the vast hall and everyone present in the congregation were discombobulated. Stunned, dumbfounded, shocked. Everyone, including the cardinals, had their eyes popped out because of this sudden bomb dropped by the Pope. In this meeting, the majority were the Fireborns and the rest were a mix of different species. But their forces were different from the nobles, Fireborn clans, or the Imperial clan. However, they had indeed played a big part in reforming this empire since it was founded. Although the Pope was right to be angry about the imperial decree, just saying these words was enough to be considered high treason. But before anyone could question his intentions, the Pope raised his red-skinned hand and spoke. I have a perfect plan to take over the empire and even get rid of the emperor himself. It is something that my predecessors already prepared for should the situation arose. I'm telling you all about this because of the way things are about to go from now on. I need all of us to be unified and share the same mindset, he stated with a calm tone. But Your Holiness, this will forever damage our reputation among the populace. We swore equality and neutrality from the affairs of the empire. Even if we managed to overthrow the imperial rule, the people would not be able to accept it, said one of the archbishops. To his statement, the Pope replied in an authoritative tone. History is written by the winners. Those who conquer are glorified as heroes, while the ones to lose are branded as villains. Then he stood up from his throne and walked forth with steady steps. We can simply use the incident with Rogis as an excuse and then label the entire imperial clan to be of the same kind. The emperor used his son's name to cut off our hands and feet, and we will use the same reason to justify our coup. And most importantly, he stopped his words and a wicked smile appeared on his face. These people who worship with full devotion, they're not God-loving, rather God-fearing. He declared, if I say that it was a divine message from our god Hetrax himself, that we must purge the vile and evil imperial clan, all of these people who know nothing other than showing blind faith to our church and our God's doctrine, they will accept it and no one would dare question it either. He elaborated on how he planned to deal with the aftermath. But there is another important issue that we must pay attention to first, because it will decide the direction of our plans in a way. He explained. What may that be, Your Holiness? Asked the last cardinal curiously. The next second, the Pope's expression turned dead serious as he presented the main issue that was clouding his mind, the Awakens Company. Another silence ensued as people of the church had many questions raised in their minds after Demiurge suddenly said a weapons and arms company, that wasn't even a big corporation of the empire, to be something important that would shift the direction of their plans. Your Holiness, how can a single Saint Blacksmith's company affect us greatly? For all we know, he was just another victim of the second prince's shenanigans. Spoke a dwarven archbishop. Demiurge, who was now standing in the very center of the hall, spoke in a somber voice. Tell me, what has been our stand since the news about Throck Oakenshield spread throughout the empire? He asked. Suddenly, everyone's expression turned alarmed. Sigh. Demiurge let out a sigh and continued, other than some vocal support and using the incident to pressurize the imperial clan to start an investigation against Rogis, our side did nothing. Not a single person among you even met the blacksmith. Was I supposed to do that for you? He questioned. The representatives of the dwarven race haven't provided him with any help either. But do you know who is aiding him now? He questioned again to see how well informed were his people. But after looking at their clueless faces, he signaled a particular step in. The leader of the paladins of the church, who was a fifth stage Saint Knight, walked forth and informed all the attendees. From the past 3 weeks, Throck Oakenshield's company has been thriving many times compared to before the incident with Rogis' host Siegfried. Suddenly, he received immense backing out of nowhere. He is being provided with money, resources, connections and manpower to even transport and safeguard his products. While we were trying to minimize and deal with our losses, a particular party extended their help, said this tall and burly fireborn knight. Some of you may have heard the rumors that either Prince Hector or Princess Vanessa have declared their support to the old dwarf and his company as a form of responsibility to revert the losses caused to him because of the former second prince. But recently, one thing has come to our attention, he said and continued under thousands of curious gazes. Our intel says that half of the people are from the followers and clans that back up Hector while the half are from Vanessa's side. But the transportation of the top-grade weapons and armors are equally divided among them for some reason. These shipments of products are in millions and we track them down to many of the nobles and influential figures, whether they're from legit businesses to even underworld organizations that do the dirty work for the imperial clan. Everyone, as long as they ally them with either of the sides, are receiving them spontaneously. He reported to the whole crowd. Gasp! Hundreds of gasps echoed in the hall because this was something no one had even heard of. Given the fact that both of them are in the race for the throne, it is impossible for them to wholeheartedly join hands together unless there was a bigger force who commanded them to do so. Spoke the paladin commander and cleared the way for the Pope to speak again. The relationship between the heirs of the imperial family is no secret to any of us. But if the only 2 candidates for the throne are working together, means there is an angle that we have failed to see yet. But if my assumptions are right, this can only happen if a certain person wills it, he said and continued in a grim tone as his eyes turned hateful. The Emperor, he openly declared without any hesitation. And soon, everyone had a baffled expression because if the emperor was directly involved in something, no way would it be a small matter. The cunning emperor used his own son, sacrificed his second-born to maintain his reign, and used his crimes to take out many of their important members to swift the balance on his side with a single imperial decree. Because these two wouldn't ally themselves with Throck Oakenshield because of their disagreements with each other, unless the emperor himself ordered them to. They're planning something big, something we're not even aware of or predict the consequences of, spoke Demiurge. This was indeed an issue for them, because their institution received the biggest hit in the history of the empire last month, and over a century's established power and authority was taken from them when all the involved members from the church who partook in the crimes against the human race were executed in the name of imperial punishment. What should we do? If what you said is right, Your Holiness, then it is a long-term plan by the emperor that will show its effect in the future. He doesn't do anything on a whim at all, spoke one of the cardinals. We can't directly show up there. If the paladins and arbiters show up near the company, then not only the imperial clan but even the normal population and the dwarven race will get suspicious. Just our envoy is more than enough to start rumors such as the church is also officially backing Throck Oakenshield and that we are finally showing our support to a victim of the second prince. We can't ally ourselves with anyone on the surface, stated Demiurge with a thoughtful expression. Many people also nodded in affirmation because their presence or a personal visit to any person or an organization was always seen as something worth noting in the whole empire. But he can just make a visit and find a few things on his own without raising any suspicions, said the Pope as a grin appeared on his face. Send him and his party to deliver my message. Who? Asked the commander of the paladins. This time, however, many of the people present in the hall understood what the Pope was hinting at. Send Axel Lobthrox to visit the Oakenshield Company. The world does not want me to stay healthy and well even for a week, it seems. My right forearm muscles are strained, so I can't write much from the past couple of days. We will continue with 2 chapters per day schedule once I recover, hopefully soon. At the northern end of Nidavellir, in wide and open grasslands, was a gigantic castle-like building that was spread for more than 5 kilometers in total length alone. There were 3 floors from start to beginning, and everything was sculpted and renovated to the point that one would believe this building to have been built just a few days ago. At the entrance of this building were 2 20-meters-tall stone statues. One of the dwarfs had a sword while the other one with a battle-axe. And even the hundreds of stone-paved stairs were made so well that even those who walked on them couldn't help but feel guilty to have dirtied these amazing creations of architecture. This was the newly renovated site of the Oakenshield Company that now had the sponsorship of both Hector and Vanessa, the Imperial Scions. While hundreds of people went in and out of the building, the majority being the workers and employees of different departments since this was the main headquarters of their franchise now. The atmosphere and the echoing noises of crafting and metalwork signified the busy nature of this company. Throck was busy forging parts of Khan's Dracos armor at the moment in his personal forge, while he left his 2 disciples with the thousands of dwarven blacksmiths who worked for him. Khan and Blackwell stood at the end while practicing their skills just like the rest and tried to increase their efficiency and experience. For them, the blacksmith's life couldn't be studied. It could only be experienced. Xing, however, not only Khan but also Throck and everyone from the subordinates suddenly sensed a form of threat incoming their way from 15 kilometers away. I can't come out now. You handle this. Contacted Throck to Khan as he was at a crucial point of forging and mending the parts of armor while mixing them with Dracos armor. All right, everyone. Hide your strength and levels. Let's see who this new party is. Ordered Khan as he sensed 8 individuals coming from the south via a warship at a fast pace. In just 2 minutes, this warship hovered close to their company building and landed in an open field while the onlookers, whether they were employees or customers, were gazing at this magnificent and well-designed warship that had a sigil of a particular group. It's the heroes' party, shouted one of the employees, and soon, the majority of the people and even the dwarven blacksmiths left their work and ran around to get a glimpse of these new guests, as if paparazzi flocking towards celebrities to get some exclusive pictures. Soon, these 8 individuals walked out of the warship while being escorted by over 100 soldiers with the sigil of the Church of Hetrax on their armors. They controlled the flocking mob towards the members of Heroes' Party, most of whom were at least a first-stage saint while few members were above. And after they finally reached the main entrance of the company building, one of the members, a Wolfkin archer among them, spoke. "The hero's party has come to visit Throck Oakenshield," he said loudly. The normal employees and customers were shocked alike, because being personally visited by the hero of fire and his party wasn't something that happened normally at all. Tap, tap. Suddenly, a 3-meter-tall human with a ripped body, who was donning fiery red armor and had a giant's word on his back, came out of the main entrance door of the building. This individual was none other than Jugram, who was wearing his second set of armor that was made by Albestros, while the first set was being reforged by Throck using the Guardian Dragon's body as part of their deal. Currently, he had limited his rank and levels to match that of an intermediate Grandmaster. Khan had given the mythical rank Metamorphosis bloodline to all of the subordinates quite some time ago, so they had no problem hiding their levels and rank just like Khan, and even erased the world energy signature completely. Unless someone was a 5th-stage saint, they wouldn't be able to detect their true strength. My apologies, honorable members of the hero's party. Master Oakenshield is currently busy with a complicated forging procedure. He cannot be disturbed during this crucial time. Allow me to guide you to our resting rooms till then," spoke Jugram in a respectful tone, trying to maintain his cover. "How strong are they?" asked Khan. "Master, I can easily take out 3 of them myself. But the problem is that there are 4 people who are above first-stage saint," reported Jugram as he was closest to these people and could directly gauge their strength based on their auras. "TCH, then we better be prepared. I smell some trouble coming," replied Khan. "Huh? What does mean he's busy? Doesn't he know who we are? Or who Lord Axel is?" Suddenly, a figure walked forth from the group and spoke in a discontent voice. This was none other than Edna, one of the members of Hero's party, who was a female succubus enchantress. But instead of stopping her haughty words, the members of her party, including Axel himself, acted like they didn't care if Throck was busy or not. "Apologies, my lady. These were the direct orders from Master Oakenshield himself. If you'd be so kind, please allow us to offer our hospitality till he becomes free of his work," spoke Jugram in a respectful tone towards the new arrivals. "Ha! The audacity. Does your blacksmith has no time to greet the great Lord Axel instead of hitting some scrap metal with a hammer?" said a female archer with a head of an eagle. However, to her words, many of the people among the crowd felt offended because this was one of the most prestigious crafts of their empire and also the pride of the dwarven race. The dwarven men and women clenched their fists as they tried to swallow down this insult. Thud! Thud! The next moment, a 3-meter-tall figure, comparable to Jugram in height, suddenly walked forth and released his saint pressure filled with killing intent. "Tell him to come out, unless he wants to be forced to kneel in front of us." The second-stage Saint half-breed orc threatened openly in front of over 500 people who were just close to the main door. However, his words echoed in the surroundings, and all those who were listening from in the building and windows also heard his words. "Michaela, looks like he really doesn't know the gravity of the situation. If we visited some other Saint blacksmith, they'd leave whatever they're doing and welcome us with open arms just to gain Lord Axel's favor with worshipping eyes. How dare this old fart not show us any respect?" said Tamek, the half-breed orc warrior with a battle-axe on his back, and slightly released his saint pressure. Tamek was a second-stage saint unlike most of their group, and his overbearing pressure instantly put the onlookers in a kneeling position. Jugram himself was forced to kneel on the ground because he was currently limiting his strength and rank. Otherwise, he alone was enough to take down half of this group if he used the Hell Domain in his true Diablos form. "These bastards. Looks like they're used to being treated like royalty," said Khan, who listened to the threat loud and clear. "Kid, if you can't even handle this small matter, then I will have to rethink our arrangement. Didn't you say you'll look after the security and whatever problems that come my way?" Patronized Throck, who was carefully carrying his work. Someone like Throck. He cared more about his craft than some rich guy visiting him when he was completely immersed in forging. Suddenly, Rathnar spoke in Khan's mind. "What do you think their sudden visit means? I don't think they're here to hire the old man. For a hero's party reputation and outer appearance to the public matter a lot as it reflects on their image and also the church. Someone like them, they have to be polite and appear respectful towards someone like the dwarf blacksmith who is one of the top 5 in the whole empire. And I feel like they're intentionally causing trouble to test the waters. What do you mean? Asked Khan. They're here to see if Throck truly has the backing from one of the imperial scions. I think the church must have sent them, because the imperial clan wouldn't interfere in this matter unless the emperor himself ordered them. You mean they're suspicious about something? Asked Khan. Yes, but we also have an opportunity here. To do what? Create more confusion, replied the Peak Saint. Rathnar then came up with a scheme and told Khan how to approach this matter that would help him deliver upon his agreement with Throck and also avoid trouble in the long run. Right at the entrance of the main company headquarters, Tamek's tyrannical aura was suppressing Jugram, the head of security of the company, since he was hiding his levels because of the order from his master. Looks like he really takes us for nobodies. Folka, send him a greeting message, spoke Tamek as he gazed at the Blue Wolfkin Saint Archer, who announced their party's arrival a few minutes ago. He knocked an arrow on his epic rank bow and aimed at the arc of the main wide door that was 5 meters tall. Are you out of your mind? You want to attack our company's building? Shouted Jugram as he grabbed the hilt of his giant's word. Huh? A human who isn't even a semi-saint dares to talk back to us? Should we show you your place? Said Edna in a threatening tone as she activated her scepter, ready to attack if Jugram even moved a muscle. And right before everyone, the archer shot the charged arrow attack skill. Boom! An insurmountable wave of pressure suddenly filled the company grounds, and those who were subjected to fall to their knees under his saint pressure suddenly felt free. As for the arrow shot by the archer, it froze midair before it even hit the arch of the door. And this time, apart from 2 members, it was the entire hero's party who were subjugated to kneel on the ground instantly as a killing intent filled with bloodlust suddenly attacked their bodies under horrifying saint pressure. Flicker. Suddenly, a figure who released an aura many times stronger than them appeared in between Jugram and the hero's party. A waist-length silver-haired man with a ripped and lean exposed upper body came into everyone's sight. This figure had glowing red eyes and his entire right arm was black from shoulder to his fingers. This individual had a curved blade on the left side of his waist, whose sheath glowed red, while 3 more black ones on his right side of the waist appeared to be epic rank curved blades themselves. This figure was Omega in his human/hybrid form. He was currently using gravity imprisonment and bloodlust skills. The former instantly trapped and froze weaker enemies in 5 kilometers radius, and the latter was nothing but his pure murderous aura and killing intent that put his enemies in a fearful state for 1 hour as long as they were weaker than him. By using just 2 skills on these new guests, Omega instantly decommissioned 6 out of 8 members of the hero's party. However, the aura he emitted was many times stronger than himself. To his tyrannical figure and strength, there was only Axel and another figure behind him who could stand straight. Do you not have manners? Is that how you behave when you're on someone else's territory? Can you bear the consequences of this grave transgression against Master Oakenshield? He asked in a grim tone as he kept increasing his bloodlust. This isn't some carnival and parade where commoners are happy to get a glimpse of you. A bunch of weak brats that I can kill in a second, acting all high and mighty in the domain I'm tasked to protect. He spoke without showing a single sign of respect or fear, as if he didn't care if this was the renowned hero's party or a group of street beggars. Just then, Axel, who had assessed the strength of this samurai swordsman, shouted in surprise with his eyes wide open, "A 3rd stage saint!" The sudden revelation of Omega being a 3rd stage saint had taken the entire hero's party by surprise, including the hero of fire himself. And unlike their previous approach to this matter, Khan's right-hand man wasn't holding back at all. The normal crowd on the site was spared of his insurmountable aura, so they could only be shocked just like the rest. Omega, who was level 372 when Khan evolved him using Skol Va Hattie's bodies 2 months ago, had now successfully crossed level 400, and became a being comparable to a 3rd stage saint. The main share of his quick succession in levels went to the energy plunderer skill that Khan got from the Guardian Dragon. This was a skill that helped him absorb mana and world energy directly from various sources like ores, cores, and energy reserves and not eat or absorb them one by one. And like a habit, he had imparted this godsend skill to all of his subordinates who had met the 100% loyalty condition. Aside from Rudra, everyone else had it, and now, thanks to the skill and the resources they already had at hand, Omega successfully raised his strength and made a breakthrough inside the Table of Arcana after Khan and Rathnar gave him access to the Chamber of Exaltation to make a breakthrough, without gathering anyone's attention. This was another function of the Chamber of Exaltation, but Khan intentionally didn't use it last time because he would have been sensed by the gods after his breakthrough to the Saint Realm anyway. And he needed to throw them off by sending the signal in No Man's Land, which gave him a window to escape and also created a diversion between two empires who served the gods. After this rank up, all of Omega's skills and abilities had a massive boost in efficiency and range, and now, he was 5 times stronger than before. And now, he could even stand evenly against the hero and the Fireborn with a black trident who stood behind him. Master, the hero of fire, is a 3rd stage saint himself. But the Fireborn behind him is a 4th stage saint. But the dense aura I sense from him, he's someone who is about to become a 5th stage saint soon. Informed Omega. I see. Means fighting here isn't an option. Not only will we die, but too many people inside the company building will get killed as collateral damage if a fight breaks out. Well, just stick to the plan. Responded Khan. Behave or you will be thrown out of here, said Omega, and firmly warned them without any hesitation despite the 2 members of the opposition being strong themselves. Do you understand who you're talking with disrespectfully? Do you know how big my reputation is? Said Axel as he gave an intense stare to Omega. Do you? Asked Omega in return. If it was that important, then neither you nor your allies would be behaving so rudely in front of all these people. Or are you under the impression that just because the church treats you like a prince, you do think of yourself as one? Retorted Omega. How dare you speak to Lord Axel like that? Do you have a death wish? Suddenly, the 4th stage Saint Fireborn donned in black and red armor from head to toe spoke as he released his pressure and threw off the one released by Omega on his party members. You're the one who tried to cause trouble here. Hero's party? What a joke. It looks like a bunch of rich brats who got recommended in the group only because of hefty donations. They're only 1st stage saints and yet behave like they own the world, replied Omega fearlessly and kept roasting the opposite side. Who do you think you are to slander us? Shouted Edna with a furious gaze. Her other teammates were no different because this was the first time anyone badmouthed them openly ever since they formed the Heroes Party. TCH, why are you yapping? The only ones here who can stand against me are the hero and the guy behind him. The rest of you won't even notice how you died. So show some manners when you speak of Master Oakenshield. You weak losers. He kept insulting the whole team again. Hey, which force are you from? To speak to us so rudely. Don't you know we're from church? Said the 4th stage saint as he too released his saint pressure and killing intent on Omega while tightening his grip on the trident. Unlike you imbeciles, I don't need to rely on someone's name or backing. So stop wasting my time and get lost. None of you are welcomed here, said Omega while folding his arms as if he wasn't slightly affected by the oppressive saint pressure of the Fireborn at all. Daring words. You're not even the strongest person here. And on top of it, you're just one guy, said the Fireborn who was ready to take an attacking stance, and so did the rest of the team members of the Heroes Party. Axel, on the other hand, had a carefree expression as he was trying to see what this hybrid saint could do in front of his team members. Yawn. Instead of getting alerted or feeling threatened by the 7 saints from the opponent team, Omega yawned and stretched his arms and shoulders. The dual-sword samurai was acting like he still didn't care despite all of them directing their bloodlust at him. The next second, he let out a wicked grin and spoke with a confident voice. Am I? Boom. Boom. One after another, many other sources of intense and heavy world energy signatures revealed themselves from inside the Oakenshield Company building. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 different Saint Pressures suddenly erupted from the building and directed their collective Saint Pressure and murderous auras at the members of the hero's party. Stunned. Even Axel and the Fireborn Trident Warrior were too stunned to speak and felt a sense of dread this time, because Omega alone was enough to subjugate 75% of their team. And now, there were 6 more saints who suddenly revealed themselves. As soon as they let their presence known, every member of the opposite side felt like they were the ones who had to fear for their lives this time. The onlookers, however, gasped in surprise, because the majority of them were the workers and employees of the company, and they had no idea that there were mighty saints who roamed in the same building as them. "What the hell? How are there so many saints?" questioned Tamik, who too felt like they mistakenly entered a dragon's lair. This was not mentioned in the intel they received at all. Boom! This time, another burst of chaotic Saint Pressure suddenly erupted right in front of them, and the temperature of the surroundings rose in a matter of seconds. A man donned in fiery red armor and with giant's word on his back, who was forced to kneel in front of them, suddenly stood up and brandished his weapon as he casually lifted it off and placed the weapon over his right shoulder. "This human as well?" shouted Michaela as they were flabbergasted on the spot, because the one to stand tall and release his chaotic Saint Pressure that gave them the foreboding of certain death was the very human they oppressed as soon as they got here. Jugram. The Hellblazer General stood beside Omega and smirked as if he too was toying with them all this time and finally revealed his real strength. Axel had a complicated expression, because this was completely exceeding their expectations as told by the church. At best, they expected 1 to 2 saints to protect this place even if they had the backing from the imperial heirs. But 7, this was more than triple their highest expected count. "Lord Axel, this is bad. Although no one except that hybrid in front of us is above 2nd stage saint rank. The aura they all are emitting is extremely dense and of high caliber. If we push it and a fight breaks out, apart from me and you, I can't guarantee that others will make it out of here alive." Warned the Fireborn through some sort of telepathic link to Axel that couldn't be detected by anyone. "What kind of trap did we walk into? And why is that giant human a saint as well? The last time I heard, I was the only human saint in this empire." He replied to the Fireborn. "That's not the issue here. If 7 saints are protecting this company and the old dwarf Saint Blacksmith, this is already a very grave matter. We cannot afford to let things escalate more than they already have," said the 4th stage saint as he saw Omega placing his hands on the hilt of his katanas. The way things looked, they were on verge of a bloody battle, all because they underestimated the opposite side. But right before anyone drew the first blood, a loud voice reached their ears as a human in a black long coat appeared in front of the entrance door. "Please stop. You can't fight here." Right when things were about to get heated between the 2 groups, one from the Oakenshield Company while the other from Hero's Party. A human dressed in black clothes as if he just changed into this presentable attire, appeared at the entrance of the company door and intervened. Khan, who summoned his usual black and gray long coat and rest of the clothes as soon as he came close to the site of the clash, walked forward and tried to calm down the crowd that looked like they were about to draw their weapons and cause a slaughter. "Sir Omega, Sir Jugram, please calm down. They're from the church, your allied force. We're all friends here, aren't we?" spoke Khan in a respectful tone towards his own subordinates. "Don't meddle in our affairs. It is them who overstepped their boundaries first," said Jugram, whose normal human appearance was of a man in his mid-30s. "Tell Master Oakenshield that we'll get rid of these intruders, so can carry on with his work without worrying," ordered Omega to Khan as if he was his superior. "Please don't say that. I'm sure there's some sort of misunderstanding. They're from the Hero's Party. No way would they truly intend to cause any harm to any innocent citizens here," spoke Khan in a vehement voice as if he was a big-time fan of the opponent group. "Am I right?" asked Khan as he looked at Axel and his team members. "Yes. There indeed seems to be a sort of misunderstanding. We only intended to meet Master Oakenshield regarding some matters," said Axel as he adjusted his tone. "Who is this guy? He's only a beginner master rank, and yet he seems to be someone close to the company's administration and the blacksmith," asked Axel to his teammates. "If I'm not wrong, he should be the new disciple of Throck Oakenshield. You know, The one who is rumored to face Master Torik's disciple in a blacksmithing face-off according to rumors, replied the Fireborn Saint. Just then, Edna also replied telepathically. Looks like these saints are from completely different departments. The way he speaks to them with respect means they're not his comrades. I think these 7 saints are not actually part of the company and they're more like tasked with protecting Oakenshield. Like some guards or mercenaries. To me, they appear like outsiders. Because that human saint is too big compared to humans of our empire. She hypothesized. Yes, Lord Axel. Edna is right. I think they're hired help. Otherwise, if they were from the Imperial clan, we would have known about them from our sources and they wouldn't be speaking so rudely to us either. Spoke Tamik. Still, to hire 7 saints and that too from outside of the Empire. I don't think that the old dwarf could afford it or has that type of connections or authority after the incident with Rogies. Replied Axel as he sped up his brain. But there's one force other than the church who can manage to hire these powerful individuals just for the bodyguard work. Said the Fireborn. The Imperial clan. Said Axel with a serious expression. You there. What is your name? Asked Axel to Khan. Khan Salvatore, Lord Hero. Replied Khan in a meek voice. Ha! Even a guy with no strength or background dares to casually talk with Lord Axel without bowing or kneeling now. Spoke an elf scholar among the group who appeared to be a second-stage saint and released his killing intent on Khan. Thud. Khan's figure quickly slumped down under this pressure and knelt on the ground as he was currently hiding his strength at master rank. This bastard! Cursed Axel in his mind because this teammate of his ruined the situation that was just calming down. That's it! Shouted Omega and quickly unsheathed his katanas to attack while Jugram was ready to leap off and attack the whole group. What's happening here? Before Omega could even move and attack the elf, a sudden loud voice resounded in the sky above them. A floating figure of a young woman adorning an armor that was a combination of white, brown and green suddenly appeared a few hundred meters above in the sky. Her black hair and green eyes, along with an extremely gorgeous facial structure, were the most striking features of her appearance. The hell? What's she doing here? And when did she even get here without any of us noticing? Exclaimed Khan. Teleportation scroll. An epic rank one at that. Replied Cyril, who was sitting inside the building. This sudden arrival during the moment when things were close to getting bloody was Vanessa. Damn it! This was not part of the plan. We were only going to maintain our secrecy with ambiguous information and let these idiots think what they liked. But this princess, we can't make up any lies anymore. Apart from Omega and Jugram, all of you hide your auras completely. Ordered Rathnar. Their original plan here was to let the hero's party think that Khan was only a disciple of the old blacksmith and not someone associated with his subordinates. And they'd let the opposite side make assumptions of their own and report it to church. But Vanessa suddenly showing up here was going to mess things up. Before anyone could speak, Vanessa's eyes landed on Khan, who was forced to kneel. More like he chose to kneel to maintain his fake background. Shrill. Vanessa suddenly released her killing intent as soon as she sensed a murderous aura forced upon Khan and then looked at the source. The hero's party. The audacity of your trash dumpsters. Do you know who he is? Shouted Vanessa and quickly landed in between these two confronting sides. Her wrathful gaze landed on their figures as she brandished her sword the very next moment. The entire hero's party was simply too shocked at the moment because first, there were suddenly 7 saints here. And now, the one and only princess of the Vulcan Empire herself appeared on the site. Vanessa, with her raged expression, quickly declared in a tyrannical voice, "He's my man." As soon as Vanessa's declaration resounded in everyone's ears, the whole surrounding turned dead silent. Whether it was Khan, his subordinates, the onlookers, or even the members of the hero's party. They all were dumbfounded. Vanessa's man, aka Khan, had his eyes popping out of the sockets. Jaw dropped on the ground and entire body frozen like an ice sculpture. Even Omega and Jugram looked at him with suspicious eyes, wondering when their master managed to charm another beautiful woman within just a couple of months ever since they entered the Vulcan Empire. He's the disciple of Master Oakenshield. How dare you mongrels release your killing intent on him? Do you know who you're all messing with? shouted Vanessa again as her sword suddenly lit on fire as she kept increasing her saint pressure. The entire heroes' party, however, had nothing to speak in return. At this moment, they all felt thoroughly insulted. Because first, it was Omega who said that they were nothing but weak losers who needed their clan's support to do anything. He didn't care if they were the heroes' party or were affiliated with the church. And now, Vanessa called the trash dumpsters and mongrels as if their identity as the biggest talents of the young generation of the whole Vulcan Empire was nothing but a joke. Yet, there was nothing they could do to retort because the one to berate them was the princess of the empire herself. A single defying word spoken against the imperial family was enough to get them beheaded under a guillotine. Should I report this to your clans? Or should I get the imperial authorities directly involved in this matter? Looks like you lot have grown bolder because people praise you for the things you didn't even achieve by yourself. Spoke Vanessa as she gave them all deathly stares. Forget getting angry. Everyone including the 4th stage Fireborn Saint was scared because she was imperial blood and their families and clans all served the imperial family in the end. Maybe the hero of fire would be spared. But the rest of them would surely be killed if they did something wrong in her presence. It's a misunderstanding, Princess Vanessa, spoke Axel as he tried to calm down the mood with a benign smile, which in reality wasn't. He didn't care about Khan at all because he was a weak nobody. Here he goes like a love-struck bird again. Whenever he sees the princess, he turns into a completely different person, said Tamik to Edna. It isn't, spoke Omega suddenly. SSBY. They disrespected Master Oakenshield, who couldn't come to greet them because he is working on legendary rank weapons. They tried to attack the building entrance just because they felt like they weren't shown enough respect. And then they forced Khan to kneel just because their fake pride needs others to worship them like gods, said Omega in a fearless tone as he told Vanessa what happened. Lies. He's lying. We did no such thing, rebuked Michaela. Is that so? We have hundreds of witnesses here. Besides, spoke Omega, and the next moment, Jugram, who stood beside him, activated a recording artifact and displayed a holographic video of the whole thing ever since he came to greet the new arrivals. This was one of the backup strategies Rathnar had them prepared for in case things got ugly and they had to prove their innocence. However, this recording did not show any of the insults or berating done by Omega at all, since Jugram recorded only the selective moments. You ignorant pricks! You dare show that kind of behavior in front of someone who is backed by me, said Vanessa in an exasperated voice. Let's see what happens when I release this recording to the whole empire. I would like to see what people will think after watching your real faces. I wonder if even the church or the imperial clan would support this kind of conduct, threatened Vanessa. Everyone from the heroes' party suddenly felt a dreary pressure on their minds and were left rooted on the spot. If it was someone else, the church or the imperial authorities would have taken care of it. But if it was the princess herself who was to release and spread this footage, they all would be scrutinized by the whole empire. Even Axel wouldn't be spared from this. Get lost. These people are under my protection. If I see you troubling the company or Khan ever again, you'll have me as your enemy. And I don't care if you're the hero's party or whatnot, warned Vanessa. She picked up Khan, grabbed by the shoulder and dragged him towards the entrance door of the building. Princess, we should maintain some distance. People will get a bad impression, whispered Khan. Vanessa quickly handed him an artifact and conversed telepathically. Play along. I want to avoid that bastard. He keeps acting all friendly and chummy with me every time I meet him. Can't he get a hint that I'm not into him? Let's get out of their sight first. Then we can talk later, ordered Vanessa as she dragged him along. Khan, for the first time in both of his lives, was getting manhandled by a woman. Who's that human? What's her relationship with him? Asked Axel with an irked expression. Seriously, we just got humiliated so badly and he's worried about her relationship with that human? Spoke the wolfkin to the rest of the group. Axel didn't show it on his face, but he was annoyed by Khan, who was walking too close to Vanessa. Let's go. We're not welcome here, he commanded the rest of the group before things got out of hand again. After they finally left with their warship, Con and Vanessa had entered the main office of the company and finally decided to speak freely. "Princess," he said. "What?" she asked with a curious gaze. "What did you mean back then?" asked Con in a serious tone. "About what? I only saved you from them," she replied. "Well, I think your words were kind of," said Con as he averted his gaze from Vanessa and spoke in a soft tone. "Misleading." Con and Vanessa finally had a moment to relax and talk among themselves without having to worry about anyone else. She sat on a luxurious chair while Con leaned against the wooden wall after getting out of the situation. However, Con started questioning the meaning behind her words as to him. They appeared very misleading. "What do you mean?" "I just saved you from whatever trouble they were causing. I called you one of my people," explained Vanessa with a coy smile on her face. In reality, Vanessa acted the way she did to make Con indebted to her, a necessary step to sway his decision and get him to join her side if she could, and then exact her so-called revenge when the right time came. "But the way you worded it sounded like you claimed me to be your partner," spoke Con with a hesitant voice. Partner in what?" asked Vanessa in a clueless voice. "As in your lover," replied Con with a grin. Stunned, Vanessa's eyes widened and suddenly she was frozen on the spot. And now that she was completely calmed down, she recalled the events again and then judged her own words with a sane mind. "What in the name of eternal flames have I done?" exclaimed Vanessa as soon as she understood how everyone took her words. She again misspoke her real intentions and chose the wrong words in her enraged state just like a week ago in front of her retainers. "No, it's not what I meant," shouted Vanessa in a high-pitched tone as a flustered expression appeared on her face. "So she's a short-fuse kind, totally losing control of her brain when she's angry," thought Con. Don't you dare have any funny ideas. I have no such feelings or intentions towards you," she explained. All right. Con then tried to salvage the situation. "Humph, why would I even like you? The only thing good about you is your looks. Other than that, you're as weak as a newborn Berkala. I'd never fall for a guy who isn't stronger than me." She over-explained herself while comparing Con to one of the famous pet animals in the Vulcan Empire. Yeah, I get it, you don't have to convince me. But now that you said it," spoke Con as a wicked smile appeared on his face. "The hero of fire looks like a perfect match for you. He has good looks, backing from both church and imperial clan. And he also meets the condition of being stronger than you since he's a third-stage saint. Not just me but everyone in the Empire would think of you two as a match made in heaven," said Con as he outright teased Vanessa. "Akthu!" Vanessa faked spitting out and looked at Con with an irritated expression. "Do you want to die? Should I throw you to the hero's party again?" she questioned with a sharp gaze. "Think about it. He suddenly turned very respectful as soon as you showed up. And you said he's always friendly. Take it from a handsome and charming man like myself. I think he likes you." He joked again. "TCH. And why would that be?" asked Vanessa as she rolled her eyes. "Maybe he thinks you're very beautiful," responded Con as he laid back on the main chair of the company head. "Oh, is that so? Then what about you? Do you also think I'm very beautiful?" she asked with squinted eyes. Yes," said Con reluctantly, because if he said no, he was basically asking for a beating from the princess and there was nothing he'd be able to do. "Then why don't you join me? You can bask and worship my beauty every day then," spoke Vanessa with a coy grin. "Those are completely different matters. Thanks for the help today, but that's not going to make me join you," said Con with a poker face. "TCH, what a heartless and foolish guy. I guess you don't know how many suitors I have lined up for me, including some princes and to be emperors from other empires. You're lucky that I'm even talking to you," said Vanessa as she posed herself, revealing some sort of intangible angelic aura. "Still not interested," he replied with a straight face. Soon, another conversation between them started as Vanessa kept nagging him to join her group while he kept declining politely. Later in the night, inside the main headquarters of the Church of Hetrax, was a man in red and black armor, standing in front of an old fireborn in a red and golden cassock. Axel Lobthrox, the hero of fire, finished reporting the whole incident to Demiurge Val Arhelm, the Pope himself. Axel empathized on how Princess herself appeared as soon as things were about to get bloody and there were too many saints. If not for the princess and the secret recording they took that could have implicated the whole party, we would have been able to do a thorough job, said Axel. I see. So the imperial family is indeed involved in this matter after all. Donvel they hired outsiders to guard the blacksmith so no one could say that the imperial clan was directly involved. At best, one would think that it's either the prince or the princess who are backing the dwarf. Spoke Demiurge with a stern expression. Given how cunning he is, the emperor is planning something big. We need to get into the game as well then, said the Pope. At this point, if we don't show our open support to Oakenshield, many of our devotees will assume that we don't care about our followers and won't bother to help or support them in the upcoming future. And our claims to treat humans as equals are also a lie. He spoke with a thoughtful expression as he tried to see through the emperor's plans. I get it. That's his plan. Suddenly the Pope shouted as if a light bulb lightened up over his head. Maybe the emperor wishes to achieve something through that dwarf and his human disciple through the challenge he accepted. I think he wishes to get the dwarven race completely on his side and raise his support. It will isolate the church in the future if the dwarven race completely allies themselves with the imperial clan. He hypothesized. That bastard is trying to make us powerless by taking away all of our support after he already crippled us using the imperial punishment as an excuse, said Demiurge. In reality, everything was turning into a big misunderstanding. The empire-level misunderstanding just because Vanessa showed up on the scene. Demiurges then summoned the official spokespersons of the church and in front of Axel. He declared in a hasty voice, "Relay my orders. We're announcing our full support to Throck Oakenshield." 3 days later, the Church of Hetrax sent their paladin's commander and 2 archbishops to meet weak Throck Oakenshield. After a day of long pretentious conversations and how they felt sorry as well as responsible for Throck, they officially declared their support to Oakenshield throughout the empire. Throck reluctantly accepted the deal after Khan's approval because their support came with the benefits of giving tenders and consignments for arms and many other accessories that they used in the churches and their settlements throughout the empire. The already super-ultra-mega rich Oakenshield company now had more added wealth with beneficial terms, just like they had arranged with Hector and Vanessa after Throck settled the deals with them. To the first prince and third princess, this also opened a new door because they were now allies with the church and their people under the table, like different parties sharing stocks of a company in a way. As for Throck and Khan, their total earnings from these deals already surpassed the mark of quadrillion harlans, and by their estimations, their personal earnings after paying for processing of products, salaries of the employees and maintenance of their facilities would be above 50 quadrillions in just a year, which was too much just for a company that wasn't even a corporation or a business organization. The 2 weeks went with a lot of work because Khan himself had to get involved to manage the business and hire over 500,000 new employees and open 15 new production facilities in other sectors of capital Arkensen. All that was just to meet the demand of their new allied forces and manage the flow of products and shipments while creating ways for keeping the business afloat. And now, even he was gaining reputation and recognition as a capable person by the top business leaders of the empire and people of the church, since he appeared as Throck's official representative to them, while the old dwarf only supervised the deals and signed papers. This also aided in Khan being able to cement his background in the Vulcan Empire as Throck's disciple, and thus, nobody asked any questions about his origin either. And now, in a way, Throck became the most popular and backed-up dwarven blacksmith in the history of the empire in just a matter of months after he had a beef with Rogies, the second prince, and then met Khan. But the way things were overblown out of proportion because the church itself was involved at this point attracted the full attention of another powerful group of the empire, namely called as the Dwarven Council. In the Vulcan Empire, the dwarves were the most prominent race after the Fireborns because they had the biggest share while reforming the empire after the Fireborns took over and killed the previous rulers. And ever since then, a council of Dwarven that officially represented the entirety of the will of their people was formed 700 years ago. Whether it was laws, rights, businesses, legislation, sanctions, and ethnic representation, they spoke for it all. To someone from Rocco's empire, it would appear like only the top brass of nobility or influential figures would rule this organization, but unlike how things worked in Rocco's, the Dwarven Council didn't care about someone's origin or backing. Donvel, they only allowed people with skills and devotion to the race and were elected by a democratic consensus. However, the administration itself had to follow protocols that benefited their race in the empire, and no form of compromise for personal gain was allowed. And now, Throck Oakenshield and his company had attracted their full attention as soon as the church got involved. Before this, he was but a single individual who was just a victim of Rogies and his tantrums. They even used his name to pressure the Imperial clan. But never did any of them personally visit him or treated him with importance, because he was a single individual who had no sway in the council or impact on their race. However, things were different now thanks to Khan's plans leading from one thing to another. Hence, the Dwarven Council decided to step in. But since this issue was related to a single individual and not the entire race, they couldn't openly get involved either. Thus, the leaders decided to use a different pretext to deal with this matter. 1 week later, the Oakenshield company was done with its capital-level expansion and now had become one of the biggest companies thanks to Khan's management team and the resources and money being freely poured by the imperial heirs and the church. "How much are we expecting?" asked Khan to Ronan and Cyril. "The way things are going, and even if we embezzle a few chunks here and there, our earnings should exceed 17 quadrillion Harlan in just the next 4 months. Reported Cyril, who was in charge of accounting just like before in Rocco's empire when they managed the Bloodborne company in Rukon district of the capital Rathna. "Good. At this rate, we won't have to worry about everything even after I'm done with that blacksmithing challenge. We will still be big fishes and won't have to worry about anything in this empire as long as my identity is hidden. I don't plan to get involved in the affairs of the ruling powers here. We will just stay as someone barely worth noticing," said Khan with a content smile. "But Master, isn't getting involved with the church bad for us? They could still have means to find about your identity," said Ronan with a worried expression. "If they did, they already would have found me. It's been close to 3 months since we arrived here now. And even so, no harm came our way, and even you guys are thought of as people who are only protecting the old man." Elaborate Khan. "How about Hero of Fire then? Do you think he knows anything?" asked Omega. "I don't think the church would let that guy get involved with us here after the scene his party caused. Both us and Vanessa have that recording on our hands, so I don't think they're stupid enough to let the matter escalate. Because causing us any harm or even trying to pressure us for something means the imperial heirs also acting out in their own way. That is a type of trouble the church would prefer to avoid at all cost," clarified Khan. Little did Khan know that his current peaceful situation was just a calm before the storm. Khan rejoiced in the fact that the aftereffects of their plans were exceeding his expectations by many folds, and now, even without causing a big scene or making out an enemy of some local force or top figures, just their income through embezzling the company's funds was going to make them filthy rich without extra effort or any life-threatening risks. "And yet, nobody thanked me," complained Rathnar in a grumpy voice. Yes, you were the mastermind of this all. I guess I can learn a thing or two from you," said Khan as he acknowledged the fact. Because this was something beyond his capabilities and experience when it came to elaborate planning. In Rocco's empire, he could mess with 3 noble factions because of the public support and since he was the sovereign of Verlassen. But here, even him being a human was a problem. Only if I had the complete dwarven bloodline, I could have avoided a lot of problems, said Khan as he sighed. Then why don't you get it? Questioned Rathnar. What do you want me to do? Kill some innocent dwarves for the sake of it? I can't even afford to go and kill some criminals or underworld organizations here because that's too big of a risk. After all, it would attract the attention of imperial rule. I have absolutely no authority here and I don't plan to take unnecessary risks that would blow my cover. Just that blacksmithing challenge is more than enough because it was beneficial for me to set up a perfect background. He rebuked. Now I will focus only on perfecting my skills and abilities. Being able to calmly focus on myself without having to worry about money and resources is something I needed the most to rank up quietly. So let's keep it that way, he said. The next week, however, the peace they had wavered after a particular envoy visited the company. Throck had a somber expression on his face while Khan was standing behind his seat like an advisor of a king, as they both faced 5 people that had ancient dwarven texts as sigils on their uniforms. And what does the council suddenly want to do with me? It's been nearly 3 months since the incident, and only now do they want to have a conversation with me? If the council truly cared about my well-being as you say, then why didn't anyone send a word when I appealed them to interfere 3 months ago? He questioned with a grumbling voice. Please attend the meeting tomorrow, Master Oakenshield. Many important people will be visiting it tomorrow. If you're not present, then Torek might use that against you, saying that you don't put the council in high regards. Spoke a semi-saint rank dwarven official. TCH. Fine. I'll visit tomorrow. But don't expect me to be respectful or treat the council like some gods. Tell them that I have no intentions to parley with Torek either. Spoke Throck in a discontent tone. Donvel, the members from the council nodded their heads, and after some irrelevant talks to drag the conversation, they left the office. What do you think is going to happen? Asked Khan. Nothing bothersome, I hope, replied Throck with a serious expression. The next day, both Throck and Khan visited the main headquarters of the Dwarven Council in a city situated at another sector of capital Arkensen named Dvalin. After visiting through a giant wooden flying ship with an appearance matching that of a submarine, their duo landed close to the main council house in Dvalin City. Soon, a flying vehicle that came to pick them up escorted their duo to the council house situated at the western end of the city. After entering the vast building filled with nothing but dwarves, whether they worked here or were only visitors, Khan followed Throck under thousands of surprised and suspicious gazes on him, since he was the only human in the whole building. Half an hour later, Throck and Khan were seated in a court hall. The old blacksmith had no problem, but Khan felt like sitting on a toddler's chair because the whole building had the furniture made solely for the dwarven race. But he couldn't complain either and sat, funnily. Soon, 5 distinguished members of the dwarven race, each adorned in high-ranking official attires, entered the hall, and everyone stood up until these 5 individuals took their seats. All of these dwarves seemed to be very old based on their appearance, even older than Throck, who was already 154 years old himself. Yet their eyes emitted an aura of wisdom just by looking at them. The High Elders of the Dwarven Council will commence the official hearing regarding the dispute between Throck Oakenshield and Bifur Torek, announced an official. This was the reason why they were called here in the first place. Although the Dwarven Council didn't want to directly involve themselves publicly, Torek had filed an appeal against Oakenshield, saying that his company had intentionally spread rumors against him and his franchise throughout the Empire, and thus, it resulted in him and all of his people suffering major losses because now they had a bad reputation in the entire Vulcan Empire. And seeing the defamation case, the Dwarven Council was using this as an excuse to make a contact with Throck. To them, it was just a first step to improve their relationship with the blacksmith using this dispute if they favored him. Because of which, Throck himself had no choice but to appear here because his reputation was on the line, and being absent would also signify that he could be the guilty party instead of being a victim. Khan and Throck looked at the other side of the hall where Torek, the old dwarf who made a scene in the Oakenshield Company building in Helsey, the old dwarf's former top disciple who chose to abandon his master when the calamity struck, were seated with furious gazes. The atmosphere in the entire hall was full of tension, as if there would be a battle very soon. Just then, the dwarven elder seated at the center announced in a loud voice, "The Dwarven Council will officially start the hearing." Soon, the council's hearing began, and the high elders signaled both sides to present their arguments regarding the allegations and the defamation case like some sort of court of law. Bifur Torek, the old dwarf blacksmith who Khan had met before, started his statement. "I appeal to the Dwarven Council to bring justice for me and my people. Because of this person in front of me, my company is getting a bad reputation and losing many clients ever since the issue with the former Second Prince became public and he got one of the Imperial Scions as his backer. As you might have heard in many rumors, I'm portrayed as someone who intentionally stole his people, distributors and his disciples after his fight with Rogi's host Siegfried. And now, I'm being vilified by the entire Vulcan Empire and many people have stopped doing business with me. And I believe Throck Oakenshield to be the mastermind behind these rumors because he sees me as his enemy from decades. Spoke Master Torek, one of the top 5 Saint Blacksmiths of the Empire, in a tone as if he was wronged. What a lying bastard. He intentionally targeted Throck when he was dealt with a low blow and now he's acting as if he is the victim. Thought Khan as he looked at the bald dwarf donned in black and yellow attire. Lies. You're nothing but a scum who stole the carpet under me when I was shunned because of that Rogi's blacklisting me. And now you want to act as if you did it out of your generosity to protect my people who were affected? At least try to make up a believable lie. Rebuked Throck from his seat and claimed the allegations to be a lie. Soon, both sides started their version of the story and even Khan gave his testimony as a witness. But unlike how normally things worked, the whole case turned into a huge fight and Throck and Biver almost started a brawl while cursing each other. Donvel, why is the council suddenly interested in my life? The last time I appealed to the High Elders to intervene. Not a single one of you responded to my call. And now that the storm is gone, you want to come in and claim that you all actually cared? Even a child can see through your pretense, shouted Throck as he openly disrespected the High Elders in his infuriated state. Even the heads of the Blacksmith Association of the Empire had a helpless expression, because Throck was no longer a figure they could oppress or try to make him submit to them under the name of respecting the Dwarven Council or following their people's laws. Previously, they didn't even bother providing him a helping hand in time of need, and now, he was someone whose word had a lot more weight to it. They couldn't even shun him in the race because that would result in making an enemy of the Imperial clan and the Church at this point. Just then, 3 more figures entered the hall and the entire room turned dead silent. The aura given by these 3 elderly dwarves was of 4th stage saints, and almost everyone including Oakenshield and Torek quickly bowed in respect. What are you doing, kid? Bow quickly, commanded Throck to Khan in a hushed tone. Who are they? Asked Khan to Throck using their telepathic communication artifact while bowing. The Trinity, replied the old dwarf.
Batman, Superman và Wonder Woman.
Khan asked in a befuddled tone. What? These are the top 3 blacksmiths of the whole empire, you idiots, berated Throck. Soon, the 3 figures were also got seated and took a stance of visitors. May I ask why the 3 of you here? We didn't send any summon for you, spoke the elderly dwarf among the 5 High Elders. This issue reached our ears long ago. The 3 of us believe that it affects all of the blacksmiths of the dwarven race as well. The conduct that caused this dispute between Oakenshield and Torek is questionable, spoke the eldest of the 3 dwarfs. Master Ivaldi, we appreciate your concern, but the Dwarven Council can take care of the issue, said one of the High Elders. Just then, the second 4th stage blacksmith spoke. TCH, how? Do any of you even know what it means to be a blacksmith? Or how our race's heritage is imbued in this craft? Master Druvagar, this dispute shall be solved with a proper procedure using the laws of the council. There's no need for either of you 3 to worry, said the 5th High Elder from the far left side. Boy, Master Ivaldi is the #1 Saint Blacksmith of the entire empire. Even the previous and the current Emperor's weapons and armors are made by him. There was a time when even I and that bastard Torek trained under him. So be respectful when you look at him, warned Throck. Just then, Master Ivaldi, who had a long white beard, spoke in an authoritative tone. The way you did things, Torek, that was against the honor of us dwarven blacksmiths. You stole his people and even his disciples as soon as he hit rock bottom. If that is your way of becoming a renowned blacksmith and rise in reputation and popularity, then I for one will never support someone like you, he said with a look of disappointment towards the bald dwarf. But before Throck could rejoice in the fact that the #1 blacksmith of the empire just took his side, Master Druvagar chimed in. What's wrong with it? All of us are aware of how big-mouthed Oakenshield is, that he always loses his mind when he is angry over some issues. Torek only extended a helping hand and spared the students of the bleak future they were going to have because of this loudmouth who messed with the Imperial Prince himself. He said and displayed his intentions to back up the bald dwarf blacksmith. But to make matters worse, Throck Oakenshield, he spoke in an infuriated tone, has committed a taboo of the dwarven race, right in front of the High Elders, hundreds of reputed as well as influential figures, officials and the top individuals of the blacksmithing profession. Master Druvagar, one of the top 3 saint blacksmiths of the Vulcan Empire, declared that Throck had committed a taboo. For the sake of his pride and in the fit of anger, Oakenshield has committed an unspoken taboo of our craft and the dwarven race, said the second-ranked blacksmith of the Empire. Druvagar then continued as he pointed his finger towards Khan, while his stern voice resounded in the entire hall. He took a human as his disciple. His loud announcement took Khan by surprise. What's the meaning of this? Was there such a rule? Asked Khan in a befuddled tone. Not really, but you see, the previous rulers of the Empire were humans. They had enslaved the entire dwarven race back then, and thus, the ancestral history between the two races even after the Fireborns took over and reformed this empire hasn't been on good terms. This doesn't include any of the previous restrictions placed on the human race. The bad blood between dwarves and humans exists from more than 700 years in this empire. Replied Throck. Damn it! Means I'm basically inside the enemy territory. Said Khan with an alarmed expression. Let me do the talking. Said Throck and spoke loudly. With all due respect, Master Druvagar, our ancestors never made such a rule. Besides, my disciple wasn't the one to spill any of our people's blood. Before the incident with the Imperial Decree, we all know how humans have lived in our empire. And me selecting him as my disciple is between myself and Torek. This has nothing to do with customs of our race or the blacksmithing craft. Rebutted Throck, yet in a respectful tone. You really have hit the bottom now, Oakenshield. Where is your pride as a member of the dwarven race? What's next? You'll name him as your successor too? Asked Druvagar in a mocking tone. Then he looked around the members of the council and the crowd. Tell me, should our dwarven race's techniques and forging methods be taught to a human? From what I heard, he used to be a handyman before Oakenshield made that bet with Torek. Someone with no talent, skills and heritage now gets to know the secrets of our ancestors even though he can't even forge a common rank sword properly. He said and tried to rile up the crowd. From his words, Khan understood that Druvagar was one of those people who hated humans in the Empire. The blacksmithing techniques and methods, the heritage and pride of the dwarven race were just an excuse to discredit Throck. At this moment, Khan wanted to rebuke, but he couldn't. Because strength didn't matter here, rather the skills. And he was indeed lacking in them at the moment because his training hadn't reached a level of forging so far. Throck had only taught him how to perfect his hammering skills to form desired shapes from metal ingots. The actual forging procedure was much more complicated and time-consuming than just hammering a sheet of metal. Thus, he did not have any right to retort among the true experts here. Plus, if he spoke anything disrespectful, it would make things difficult for their side, as offending one of the top 3 would earn him the ire of many dwarves here. Master Philly, what is your stand on this? Asked one of the elders to the last saint blacksmith of the trio. I only came here to see the verdict. I don't wish to side with either of the parties. Replied Philly, who had a dark red beard and braided mohawk as he took a neutral stand. Soon, Master Ivaldi also interjected and emphasized how unethical and disgraceful it was to bring down Throck when that maniac called Rogues targeted him just because he was a dwarf. He too voiced his misgivings about how the Dwarven Council intentionally ignored the situation back then. After another hour of heated arguments and rebuttals, the whole mood of the hearing became clear to Khan. Half the members present were on Throck's side because they felt that Torek was wrong to steal the former students when he was in a pinch. Others just hated Throck because he was teaching a human their techniques and skills for the sake of his pride and the challenge as an excuse. 2 hours later, in a separate chamber of their own, the High Elders were discussing stuff between themselves after they adjourned the hearing to give their final verdict. The issue is truly bigger, because both sides have half the people of the council divided. Any verdict wouldn't go unopposed, said one of the high elders with a somber expression. Plus there is the church and imperial heirs involved. Thus, we can't make any decisions that would be unfavorable to Oakenshield either. Otherwise, we will end up souring the relationship between the dwarven race and these two powers, said an elderly dwarf. Torek is also a well-connected oaf. His corporation holds a lot of sway in the blacksmithing business and does a lot of deals with the nobles of our species throughout the empire. Although his claims are without proof, we can't just outright give a verdict beneficial to Oakenshield. There's no way we won't get dragged into the mud if we favor either side, said the third high elder. Plus Master Ivaldi and Master Druvagar are very reputable figures themselves. They also have a lot of prestige within our race, the council, nobles, and imperial clan. In the end, it will be us taking the biggest hit as a result, said the fourth elder with an ashen white braid. Just then, the main leader of the high elders, the one who sat in the middle during the hearing, spoke with a thoughtful look. Then we'll let them fight in a brawl and keep our hands clean, he proposed. What do you mean? Soon, he told everyone a scheme that would help them keep their integrity intact as the highest authority of the dwarven race and avoid appearing like they were favoring or abandoning either of the sides. After an hour, the hearing resumed and everyone gathered to hear the conclusion. The council has made a decision, spoke the figurehead of high elders and continued in a righteous tone. Since the dispute started between the two parties in the name of displaying their skills and credibility as dwarven blacksmiths, to uphold their reputation and honor, the council thinks that it is just and right to let both parties decide the fate of their companies and corporations with their skills alone, as it is the only thing acknowledged by the entire dwarven race and those who work in the blacksmithing craft, he declared. And to settle their dispute, he said with a benign smile on his face, Dwarven Council itself will organize and conduct the challenge between their disciples next year in front of the whole Vulcan Empire. The high elders of the Dwarven Council, which represented the entire dwarven species in the whole Vulcan Empire, gave their conclusion regarding the dispute between Throck Oakenshield and Bifur Torek, two of the top 5 saint blacksmiths of the empire. However, both Khan and Throck were left bamboozled after the elders declared that they'd organize an event in front of the eyes of the whole empire and carry out the challenge between Throck and Bifur. And their respective students, Khan and Helsi, would represent their masters and compete against each other to prove who was the better teacher and a skilled blacksmith among the former two figures. But the main reason why Khan turned speechless was because this whole arrangement completely thwarted his expectations and future plans. Prior to this decision by the council, it was supposed to be a challenge held only between the two saint blacksmiths and the amount of audience would be limited. But now, if the Dwarven Council was to make it an empire-wide event, there was simply too much at stake and too much attention would be paid to this face-off than it was needed. Khan only wanted the challenge to use as an excuse to learn the skills from Throck after the latter made a bet with Torek. His intentions were only to learn the blacksmithing skills, and even he didn't take the challenge seriously at all. And once he was done, he'd either carry on with managing the Oakenshield company as it was a safe source of income and resources and plan to make breakthroughs to higher saint stages quietly. Even if he lost the challenge, only certain individuals would know of it and Throck's reputation could be recovered in the future. But if the challenge becomes something that attracted the attention of the whole empire, then Khan was going to get into everyone's eyes even if he didn't want to. This included even the church and the imperial clan itself. The two of them were the forces he was trying to avoid and only revealed himself as Throck's disciple till this point. The competition that was supposed to happen behind closed doors was now going to become a public exhibition because of this verdict. In a way, the Dwarven Council had deceived Throck and Khan greatly. "I refuse," bellowed Throck with eyes full of disagreement. "This is between me and Torek. Why is the council trying to make it a big deal and intervene more than they need to? Who even asked you to organize an empire-wide event? Donvel, not only I am falsely accused, but now you're dragging me into bigger troubles just to show your authority. Looks like the council is very desperate to appear relevant at this point," rebutted Throck without a shred of respect in his tone, because he too was well aware of the consequences. In a way, The council had cornered him in an unfavorable situation. Ha ha! Why? What happened, Oakenshield? Didn't you say that day that you could even turn this human into one of the best blacksmiths in the Empire? Asked Torek, the bald blacksmith, with an exhilarated expression. Because as things stood, this was indeed a blessing for him. Not only he'd get to clear up the bad reputation that he currently had, and on top of it, he'd be able to publicly shame Oakenshield as well as raise his reputation to the point where he'd become a behemoth of the blacksmithing industry. To him, the victory was already in his grasp because Halsey himself was a semi-saint blacksmith already. Don't tell me that you were just bluffing that day and you don't actually have the skills to do anything than barking around. If you're gonna chicken out, then admit that I'm better than you in front of everyone and maybe then I'll rethink. He said with a smug smile on his face. And don't forget that you still have signed that contract. Can't be unless both sides agree. So if you don't accept the decision by the council, it can be considered as my win and I will take your whole company and all of its assets as per our contract. Reminded Torek. Khan remembered the day when he got mixed into their fight. It was indeed Throck running his mouth aloud and shamelessly boasted that he could even make a normal human from the street one of the top blacksmiths of the Empire. And now, his words came back to bite them in the ass. You just want to look good when you're the one who should be scrutinized and not me. Retorted Throck. Because Throck also felt that if the challenge was indeed displayed across the Empire, he was going to lose everything he had since Khan was most likely to lose anyway. And then, his entire life's reputation, as well as the company, will be gone. Just because the issue had been overblown out of proportion. He couldn't hand out a husk of his company like they planned before and would eventually have to give Torek everything they owned as per their contract. At this moment, both Khan and Throck were indeed in a pinch. This time, even others who backed Throck didn't speak up. Because often, this was how things were settled between the famous blacksmiths of the Empire even in the past. The skills and talent was what their entire species acknowledged as per the old customs. And if Throck backed out from this, then they'd all feel stupid to take the side of this dwarf without a backbone. Even Throck could also feel the judgmental and expectant gazes on him without even looking. Kid, what do you say? I'll lose everything at this point. He spoke with Khan. Khan then started contemplating many things, because till now, everything he learned was due to curiosity and his will to learn and perfect his blacksmithing skill set for future gains. But now, the issue was bigger than himself and involved Throck, his company, and also the people who chose to support him in the hearing. This time, it was for a bigger cause. And after a lot of thinking, Khan spoke in a loud voice that resounded in the entire council hall and declared, "We will accept the challenge." The early morning of the next day started as a military drill for both Khan and Blackwell, while Throck was their drill sergeant who woke them up by releasing his killing intent on both the disciples. Get into your working clothes, you useless shits. Is that how you want to become a blacksmith? By sleeping instead of training? Bellowed the old dwarf. Yawn. What's this? Since when did you start working so early? Asked Khan, who looked like a walking corpse in his half-asleep state. Bang! Before he could even react, Throck leaped in the air and punched Khan in the head. Crack! His head was buried in the floor as the tiles were cracked open. Inside the forging room, you only address me as master, shouted Throck with a visible fire coming out of his eyes. He then looked at Blackwell with his fiery eyes, and the Abyss Knight General instantly stood straight and rearranged his posture like a wooden pole. Otherwise, he too was going to receive the same wake-up call. Hey, why did you? Bang! Arg! Another fist hit Khan's head as he was buried even deeper. Hey? What hey? What did I tell you to call me? Asked Throck as he released all of his orange-colored pressure full of world energy belonging to a second-stage saint. This is going too far. This is... Bang! This time, Throck hit him even harder and Khan's head was thoroughly buried in the flooring like an ostrich. So what did I say again? Asked the Saint Blacksmith. I will wake up early from now on, Master. Spoke Khan like an obedient child as two swollen mountains appeared on his head. Good. Now both of you will start the forge and show me how you two perform smelting and then casting, he said in a domineering tone. Both Khan and Blackwell instantly went into alert mode as they felt a sense of foreboding that involved them getting beaten to death by the old dwarf if they missed a single step or made a slight mistake. Khan and Blackwell quickly brought in metal ores weighing around a kilo and rearranged everything in the foundry. In the Vulcan Empire, the top blacksmiths used a rank mana cores to power the magic furnaces just like how Albestros used to do in Rocco's Empire. But the equipments here were far too advanced and directly let them know of the temperature of the furnace and how close were the ores to the melting point. Soon, the metal ores that varied in shapes started melting and they prepared cylindrical casts to pour in the liquid metal. After clearing out the slag that surfaced at the top and putting it in the crucible, Khan tilted the furnace using a leveling level while Blackwell held onto the mold where they were to pour in this molten liquid. Although this was just normal casting procedure, the duo felt like their life was hanging on a thread because Throck was intensely staring at them, just waiting to see a slight mistake in the process. After carefully pouring out the molten liquid in the mold and successfully performing the casting, Khan then started a magic cooling equipment surrounding the mold that cooled down the liquid while it took the shape of the mold without affecting the inner composition of the metal or forming cracks on the shape since it needed to naturally lose the temperature. If this was Earth, this equipment would save the professionals hours of time that they had to waste just to have the liquid cool down. In just 30 minutes, the whole casting procedure was over and they took out the sample from the mold and presented it to the old dwarf. Not bad. There are no bubbles or any cracks. I would have broken your arms if there was even a slight amount of slag, said Throck as he looked at a perfectly cast cylindrical-shaped sample. I guess you two have learned enough to be done with smelting and casting. Now show me how you do hammering and quenching, he commanded. What shape? Asked Blackwell. Perfect rectangular ingot, he said. What? This is cylindrical. And you want us to make it in a flat rectangular shape without smelting it? Do you know how hard that is? Questioned Khan. He. Of course I do. But I didn't say your training was going to be easy using the conventional methods. If you can't make me a perfectly rectangular ingot in the dimensions I order you to, then you both are already failures as a blacksmith. Spoke Throck with a condescending look on his face, as if he was looking down on Khan and Blackwell's entire existence. But to no avail. The duo had to follow the orders and the entire morning hammering and sweltering the casted samples into the shape. At night, Khan was finally free after spending 15 hours of training without a break while Throck berated him and Blackwell and beat the shit out of them while they made many mistakes. Although he had learned hammering skills a while ago, the rank was still lower and so was his mastery. Thus, he screwed up more than 20 times and had the old dwarf physically torture them. Khan now stood in his new bedroom in the company quarters. Swoosh! Ronan appeared out of the shadows and handed Khan a space ring. Enough for 2 months, he said and disappeared from the spot. Khan then quickly activated his dimensional domain and poured out the content of this space ring. And one by one, he started creating doppelgangers, all of whom possessed 70% of his physical stats and all his skills except for the divine abilities and the blessings. After 5 doppelgangers were created and received enough SS rank cores with their separate space rings, enough to supply them with mana to sustain themselves for months, Khan distributed the heap among the 5 and spoke in a resolute voice since this was only the beginning. All right everyone. It's time to start the hard grind. The early morning of the next day started as a military drill for both Khan and Blackwell while Throck was their drill sergeant who woke them up by releasing his killing intent on both the disciples. Get into your working clothes you useless shits. Is that how you want to become a blacksmith? By sleeping instead of training? Bellowed the old dwarf. Yawn. What's this? Since when did you start working so early? Asked Khan who looked like a walking corpse in his half-asleep state. Bang! Before he could even react, Throck leaped in the air and punched Khan in the head. Crack! His head was buried in the floor as the tiles were cracked open. Inside the forging room, you only address me as master, shouted Throck with a visible fire coming out of his eyes. He then looked at Blackwell with his fiery eyes and the Abyss Knight General instantly stood straight and rearranged his posture like a wooden pole. Otherwise, he too was going to receive the same wake-up call. Hey, why did you? Bang! Arg! Another fist hit Khan's head as he was buried even deeper. Hey? What hey? What did I tell you to call me? Asked Throck as he released all of his orange-colored pressure full of world energy belonging to a second-stage saint. This is going too far. This is... Bang! This time, Throck hit him even harder and Khan's head was thoroughly buried in the flooring like an ostrich. So what did I say again? Asked the Saint Blacksmith. I will wake up early from now on, Master. Spoke Khan like an obedient child as two swollen mountains appeared on his head. Good. Now both of you will start the forge and show me how you two perform smelting and then casting, he said in a domineering tone. Both Khan and Blackwell instantly went into alert mode as they felt a sense of foreboding that involved them getting beaten to death by the old dwarf if they missed a single step or made a slight mistake. Khan and Blackwell quickly brought in metal ores weighing around 1 kilo and rearranged everything in the foundry. In the Vulcan Empire, the top blacksmiths used a rank mana cores to power the magic furnaces just like how Albestros used to do in Rocco's Empire. But the equipments here were far too advanced and directly let them know of the temperature of the furnace and how close were the ores to the melting point. Soon, the metal ores that varied in shapes started melting and they prepared cylindrical casts to pour in the liquid metal. After clearing out the slag that surfaced at the top and putting it in the crucible, Khan tilted the furnace using a leveling level while Blackwell held onto the mold where they were to pour in this molten liquid. Khan and his doppelgangers stood inside the dimensional domain, his separate space that spanned for 5 kilometers while from the outside, it didn't even span for 5 meters. And right in front of them were various tools, equipment, metal ingots, forging materials and furnaces placed in order. These were the forging materials and equipment Ronan stole from the company warehouses and Cyril covered up the expenses in the logbooks so there was no trace to track the purchase. This was time for Khan to practice his skills and techniques and as he planned before, the doppelgangers were going to become his cheats. Currently, he only had an F-rank blacksmithing skill even after weeks of training. And he unlocked this one on his own and not directly absorbed it from someone else. Contrary to what one would expect from an isekai or reincarnation fantasy novel, people didn't awaken or learn such skills just by making repeated movements or performing a certain type of attack patterns in Vantria. Even fighting skills required understanding and physical compatibility to unlock them, while magic spells and skills demanded control over mana and different elements of nature. As for crafts like blacksmithing, it had rules of its own. Even someone like Khan, who the blessings from a demigod, wasn't an exception to them. First, he had to make himself get used to the movements of smithing techniques, then he had to perfect his control over the physical force with which he was performing the forging. Aside from that, he also needed the perfect understanding of the properties of the metal or alloy being forged. Then how best to shape them while having perfect control of the tools and equipment he was using in the procedure. And while doing so, Khan needed to pay attention to every single hit was making to shape the sample at hand. Spacing out or just hammering without thought would end up sacrificing the end product. Something he and Blackwell learned after making over 30 pieces of steel armors and gauntlets. Some of them had uneven layers, and some portions were thinner than the others. This caused the weight imbalance, and also defensive strength was weaker in these parts. If it was just some blacksmith apprentice working in a local smithy, the masters would be proud of them to succeed up to this level of the finished product in such a short time. But the master Khan and Blackwell had was one of the top 5 in the entire empire. Throck scolded and beat both of his students to a pulp because even a slight mistake or uneven weight distribution could restrict the fighting prowess of the wearer and even cost them their lives in a life and death battle. The smallest mistake meant a complete failure in his eyes, and thus, Khan and Blackwell were forced to keep up with the same training for days until they made a perfect product that was passable in the eyes of their master. Although this constant berating and beating for screw-ups pissed him off a lot, Khan also understood that Throck wasn't just doing it for kinks or wasting effort. Instead, he was building a solid foundation for both of them where they could progress and learn new skills after mastering the basic ones first. Because even the tallest building, no matter how big of a marvel in terms of architecture or design it was, or no matter how amazing it looked, would be decimated to the ground if the foundation itself was weak. Thus, Khan and Blackwell were working tirelessly throughout the day while working with different materials and types of tools as soon as the morning sun rose and stopped only when it was dinner time. And inside the dimensional domain, his 5 doppelgangers were helping Khan to increase his mastery and experience over the skills he had already unlocked. Thus, compared to others, he was training 6 times harder and also improving at a drastic pace. Days and then weeks passed by and finally, the blacksmith's hammering skill rose to be rank as he kept crossing the 100% mastery and proficiency threshold one by one and ranked up the skill with the help of the other 5 doppelgangers. Meanwhile, the rest 10 doppelgangers were allowed to do tasks of their own. 5 of them were left with fighting and perfecting the newly gained skills that he gained after becoming a saint and the ones that were upgraded to saint rank after his breakthrough. Khan was at a stage where any skill below the SSS rank was hardly useful for him because his playing field was now elevated to saints and legendary rank creatures. One of his doppelgangers transformed into a titan while the other one attacked it using the newly upgraded Dragon Strike skill. Third one intervened and used Lucid Reality skill on both to throw them off balance in a battle while the fourth one used the Gravity Law skills to suppress the others. And lastly, the 5-1 was using Darkness Elemental skills and attack infused in skills such as Dark Lightning Strike while using Spiritual Replica skill which allowed Khan to create a separate entity made of world energy that was no different than his version of Susanoo. All the doppelgangers used a particular set of skills and fought a battle to the death on the original body's orders. Because of this way, Khan would naturally find flaws in himself, his techniques and combat capabilities as well as learn how to counter different types of enemies with varying abilities and skills. The Khan of now could kill a semi-saint individual just by releasing his war dominance aura alone if he willed it. So the new skills he got from killing those legendary rank monsters, Skol Vahati as well as the Guardian Dragon were what he needed to pay attention to the most. Because being ignorant or putting off his training was no longer an option for him. He had to be prepared for the day when somehow others found out about his real identity as Hero of Darkness. As for the last 5, they were going to be his trump cards. After distributing the tasks his first 10 doppelgangers had to do, Khan then moved to the last 5. Unlike the others, these didn't have any form of physical training to do. Rather, it was going to test their minds to the limit. Khan wanted to resume his magic and also the dimensional law study for a while, and after nearly half a year later, he finally got the chance because now he had peace and wasn't burdened with the responsibilities of a sovereign or had to hunt for legendary monsters to protect the borders and the lives of his subjects. Each one was studying 2 to 3 different elements and performing spells, barriers, and formations, including the dark magic element ones. Because even now, he was only an intermediate rank magician and hadn't even surpassed someone like Solomon Elfenheim, the elven mage whose innate abilities he acquired. Khan had no genius or experienced master to teach him magic skills or help correct his doubts. Even someone like Cyril wasn't that big of an expert compared to other saint mages because he too had limited knowledge just like Khan. Just that he could use multiple elements without any restrictions while others could use 3 to 4 at best. So all Khan could do was learn and perfect them through trial and error while figuring out things on his own. However, the books left by the elven semi-saint mage related to magic and the space law itself were his biggest source of knowledge and guidance, making them adequate for his current situation. So the remaining 5 of the doppelgangers were also swarmed with work. Before becoming a saint, the doppelganger skill was only a SS rank skill and didn't allow Khan to share the mastery and proficiency of any of these skills. Only after he became a saint did the skill itself reach saint rank, and because of the world energy Khan now had access to, this shared connection evolved and now he could use them as his cheat codes. So it was the time to reap the maximum rewards while covering all important fields and without wasting any more time like he was forced to do before becoming a saint. At the same time, all these doppelgangers needed a generous amount of mana and world energy to carry out their work. Because whether it was the fighting skills or the magic spells, whether it was the transformation abilities or using the gravity law and the dimension law abilities, they all needed a lot of world energy and mana to perform. All the doppelgangers only had 70% of Khan's physical stats and abilities. But none of them had their own reserves of mana and world energy because they were part of an ability and Khan was the actual source. The SS rank cores he gave them were only useful to extend their activation time but didn't work as the source of their strength. And even with his current capacity, which was double that of a normal saint, Khan didn't have even 10% of the quantity that was required. This was one of the biggest shortcomings of the hack he was using. But thanks to a certain shameless, almighty being who didn't like to leave plot holes, Khan already had an alternate source available. Rathnar's core. Since the first emperor of Rocco's empire, aka Rathnar Whitlock's core, was bound to his soul already, the doppelgangers could automatically harness the required mana and world energy directly from the Peak Saint's core. Hence, it was providing them with inexhaustible reserves, so even if they all were not legit saints, practicing these skills was no problem. Again, the Peak Saint's core proved itself to be one of Khan's biggest assets and helped him bypass many restrictions that would be impossible unless one was at least a 5th stage Saint Mage. When Khan asked the old emperor about how strong his core was and how much energy it held, Rathnar only scoffed at Khan as if he was entertaining a newborn. Even if your doppelgangers used it as a source every single day for the next 10 years, they still wouldn't manage to deplete 30% of the original quantity stored in the core. Those were his words. And the hard-to-digest fact was, Khan could feel through his soul connection with the core that he indeed hadn't even scratched the surface. Just how powerful was a Peak Saint? Wondered Khan with his mouth agape. All he knew was that Rathnar could travel a couple of 1,000 kilometers of distance in a single second at his peak. And a demigod could travel 10,000 kilometers. Meanwhile Khan, a first-stage saint, could travel 1 kilometer distance in a second, and that too when he used his several speed-enhancing skills and abilities such as Quicksilver, Jetstream, Sky Overlord, and Gravity Law skills such as Attraction and Repulsion to enhance his momentum. The world was truly vast, and Khan had just come out of the little well he was living in. Even the Vulcan Empire wasn't comparable to the vast sea of wonders and powerful beings called Vantria. After letting out a defeated sigh, Khan carried on with this arrangement while all the 15 doppelgangers trained and perfected themselves at different corners of this dimensional domain. And the biggest surprising fact about this whole arrangement was that all the 15 doppelgangers shared the same mind as Khan. They weren't some mindless subordinates or proxy replicas. All of them were the real Khan, including the original body, and as they practiced everything, whether it was fighting moves, magic, space law, or the blacksmithing skills, they were all connected to each other mentally and physically while collectively. They experienced everything at the same time. One just focused on the particular task while putting everything and everyone else in the background of their mind while performing the given responsibility individually. But like how nature or energy worked on the law of conservation and equivalent exchange, he too had to play by the same rule. As for the price Khan had to pay was something that would completely destroy him,